So should probably wait a little bit for people to roll in. What do you say? We give people another 3 minutes and then we start?
Sure. Is there white noise coming from my end, or hold on? Can you hear it now?
No, it's gone after you muted and then came back.
What's my heater?
Oh, yeah. Well, it is the season for heaters.
Yes, it is. Sorry. Let's see.
Okay. Well, got a few participants in.
Yeah.
I guess hopefully people
there from Analytics, or actually, well, he knows who he is.
He knows who he is. All right. Well, I guess we might as well get started, and hopefully more people will roll in as we get going. Welcome to the new Champ Class office hours for December of 2023. So I'm Jennifer Dungan. I am the optimization manager analytics at Torstar, which is a publishing company in Canada, focusing mainly on newspaper publications and verticals that relate to that. You may have heard of the Toronto Star, which is our flagship property, but we have other dailies and community newspapers, mostly across the Ontario footprint. So I guess, Jeff, because you're already unmuted.
Sorry, I was actually looking at the chat. I was not paying attention to the question. My apologies.
Just introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I will introduce myself. So my name is Jeff Plumer. And so I am the manager of digital analytics for Kroger Personal Finance. So if you haven't heard of Kroger, so Kroger is one of the largest grocery retailers in the United States. And Kroger Personal Finance, what we do is basically gift cards, credit cards, and money services. And that is Kroger Personal Finance. And so now I will get my mind back on track. Thank you very much.
And Luke.
Yeah, hi, Luke on, returning as a champion. So I'm really glad to be part of this. So I'm the director of B2B digital analytics at Fidelity Investments. So if you have a 401k or anything like that with net benefits or Fidelity, I probably work on one or more of those sites.
All right. So just note to everyone who's here, the session is being recorded. And you can ask questions through the chat. We've got moderators who are watching for the questions to come in. We also have questions that came into us before this session, hence why you can see up on the screen, we've got some questions that we're going to start with. And when you are done, I believe the link to the YouTube channel has already been posted. So as we complete this session, the recording will be uploaded to the channel for you to watch later and take pauses and rewinds of anything that we say. But again, we're happy to repeat here if you missed something or want more clarity or in-depth analysis. So with that, I guess we'll get started with the first question. So are there any best practices for the migration of Adobe Analytics Report Builder request to CJA Report Builder requests? This is an interesting one because, well, I don't have CJA. I'm not sure about Luke and Jeff if you guys have CJA.
So actually, Kroger is actually in the process of migrating, but I will tell you this. So there is actually a fantastic, there's actually a full-on tutorial that has been posted out to Experience League that has a full-on walkthrough on migrating from Adobe Analytics to CJA. In fact, Josh Stevens, I might even be able to talk to this as well, because I think he might actually know some things about this as well. But anyway, what I will say is there's a great like I said, there's a really good there's a good tutorial out there that I can point you to. I'll go out and actually get the link and provide it so that you can see it, and I'll provide it later.
Okay, and Josh is saying CJA Report Builder is easy to use, much easier than the legacy version. Thank goodness for that, because the legacy version is it's a little I'm going to be delicate on this one. I'm just going to say tricky.
Yeah.
But he's not sure about migrating reports that already exist. Yeah, I'm kind of at the same thought. I believe there was a conversation like this on Experience League recently. And the general consensus from most of the people there was that there was no easy way to migrate the reports.
Yeah, sorry. When I'm thinking, I'm sorry. I will apologize and take a step back. When I read that question, I was thinking about the migration of Adobe migration from Adobe Analytics to CJA, not Report Builder. So may I please take a step backward in the way that I read that question? Okay, so I was thinking of the actual migration from Adobe Analytics to CJA. So I will step back in the way that I read that question. I have a tendency to do that sometimes, where I read questions differently. So I will take my step backwards. But yes, so yes, and it's a good thing that I actually did actually mention Josh, because he actually did go ahead and step in and actually say something to help me rephrase what I was supposed to say. But yeah, so he actually has mentioned some things to me about about CJA Report Builder. He actually has sent me a guide for using CJA Report Builder in the past. But yeah, and you're right, it can be a little bit tricky. But yeah, there is no direct way of actually migrating Adobe Analytics Report Builder over to CJA over to CJA Report Builder. It's basically you're going to have to rebuild it. But to that point, when you do that, it actually will be an opportunity. And I think Jen, you had actually brought this up. It actually is a good time to actually review what you have done in the past. So unfortunately, you know, nobody likes rebuilding things. And I think that I had kind of mentioned this in the past. There might be somebody out there that's like really good at, writing VBA macros to do something that might help you along in, converting or migrating something from one thing to the next. But I would say it might be a great opportunity to review what you have done with your report builder, and it might be an inconvenience.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean, I had mentioned that, and thank you for pointing that out, because I find whenever I do any sort of site migration, like we just went through a site migration from one platform to another. And while I tried to keep as much tracking the same across the two platforms for consistency, for people being able to pull the reports in a manner, I take that as an opportunity to look for efficiencies, for cleanups, for improvements. And I do the same thing with my report. So even if 90% of my reports rolled through, I took that opportunity to go back and review them and go, do these still hold true? Is it time to do like a little update here, a little tweak there, a little addition there? And it's work, but it gets you something stronger at the end. So it's not always a bad idea to rebuild. I mean, you may have 1,000,008 things on your plate that you are trying to do, and rebuilding obviously isn't built into all of that time for plans, but it does kind of get something stronger for the business at the end of the day. Luke, do you have anything to add onto this conversation?
No, I think you said a great lead. So whenever do any migration, let's plan for it, do the cleanup so we don't bring the same problems over to the new implementation platform, etc.
All right. So let's move on to the next question, which is filter a table by metric values. So in Workspace, is there a way to filter a table by a metric value? For example, show only pages with greater than 1,000 visits. So when comparing date ranges by percent change, the lowest volume, highest volatility dimension values, dominate the report, we want to remove them. And then sort a table by dimension values. So like we can segment names are in rows instead of dimensions. There is no kind of easy out of the box solution for this, unfortunately. There is kind of a pseudo solution for creating a calculated metric. It's not the most ideal. So if I were to, I don't know, pull in visits and page, and to do that again. And let's just take a look here what we've got. So, we've got quite a bit of low traffic. Let's hypothetically say, let's cut down anything under 3,000. We'll just make that our mark. So what I'm going to do is, now this is my little trick for doing quick on the fly calculated metrics. I'm going to create a calculated metric from selection, and I'm just going to go with mean off the bat. I'm not going to use mean at all, but it gets me something quick out of the quick options rather than building out a permanent calculated metric. And then I'm going to edit this. So I'm going to say visits greater than or equal to, I think we said, what, 3,000? And then I'm going to come down here, get rid of my mean, and I'm going to add in a if function. So if you haven't already seen functions, it'll ask for you to do a logical test, a value of true, and a value if false. So inside the value of true, I want to do another function, which is greater than or equal. So I'm going to look for visits being greater than or equal to, and then here I'm just going to use a static number of 3,000. So in this scenario, if my visits is higher than 3,000, I want it to return visits. And if it's not, I'm going to use another static number and return 0. So just a very simple two-function kind of nested logic. And I'm going to apply this. Now, when this finishes loading and I can actually scroll, you will notice that here is my original values and here is my greater than 3,000. So you can see that I've actually cut out anything that happens to be under 3,000. The problem is they still show here and they still count toward your total. If you were doing something that was not so attribution-y, like visits or unique visitors, but you were using page views, your totals should come out properly, or not, no, sorry, the totals won't come out properly, but you could do a column sum. Unfortunately, you cannot do a column sum with visits because you will double count the same visit for all of these pages. So again, it's not the most ideal solution. There actually is, I believe I posted it. There's an idea on Experience League specifically around having Adobe provide a feature that would allow us to do this type of filtering out of the box. Hopefully they pick it up, because obviously this is not the greatest solution. And then I'm not sure, sort a table by dimension values. Like when we can, segment names are in rows instead of dimensions. I'm just trying to make sure I am understanding. I'm assuming that you mean kind of like alphabetically, sort by alphabetical.
Yeah, that's how I'm interpreting it, Jen.
Oh, sorry, what was that, Luke?
And that's how I'm interpreting it.
Yeah.
Also, so yeah.
It's interesting. Some items you can sort and other ones you can't. And I haven't quite figured out the pattern to that. I think when you are using segment names, I think you can sort alphabetically, but not necessarily dimensions out of the box. Oh God. Okay. Hold on. I am just going to make this not like 400 rows because this is a little hard to scroll past. But let's just add a new table in. And well, there's these nice little segments right here. If it lets me grab them. So here I can sort by my segment names. But I can't do that here on a dimension. All I've got is the filtering. And I'm definitely not going to tell you if you've got a lot of values that you want to try and sort to try and create a segment for each value, because that's insane. I mean, you can do it, but that's a lot of work. And it's not exactly scalable because every time you get a new value, it won't be accounted for. Oh, are people having delays? Can you guys still see? I just scrolled up now.
I'm not seeing the delay on my end, but we need to make sure that others aren't having the delay.
Okay. Okay, he's gonna rejoin. Okay, and so if you only had URL items, so you're saying, can we sort? Oh, so you can sort by URLs? I'm not even sure if this sort then like items. This one doesn't actually have this doesn't seem to have a URL. This is a demo data source. We have add display URL, which is kind of different, but I'm still not sure if, because you'd still be using like an evar. Let's just use like an evar for any example. I mean, it shouldn't matter if it's a URL or something else. And I apologize, being demo data, I'm not exactly sure which fields I want to look for. evar of marketing channel. Let's just see if that would allow me to sort. It doesn't appear to let that happen. In a new table, grab paste into rows.
About the only thing I've been able to sort on the dimension is really time-based, such as month.
Yeah, same here. Because those are kind of classified data sorts, like month, day, or day of the week. But I've never been able to see a regular evar getting sorted by alphabetical order.
Yep, that's my experience also.
Maybe in CJA. All right. Yeah, so not exactly the answer anyone was hoping for, but we're all kind of limited by what we can and cannot do. All right, do we want to move on to the next question, or do you guys have anything to add to this? All right, I'm going to assume you have.
So one thing I do want to add to that, so not by dimension, but let's say, for example, if you want your metrics in a certain order, so let's say you want unique visits at the top, and this is changing where the metrics are as a column, and if you have your dimensions as across the row, so basically across step, what you can do is use the table builder if you want your metrics in a certain order.
Okay.
Yeah. Not exactly the same question, but I've seen a similar question like that before. Correct. And Mandy is saying that, but that also gets rid of the dedupe in the grand total. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where are we on time? We're halfway through, so we probably should move on to the next question. You can always follow up on this in Experience League, or you can contact the organizers and pass questions through. All right, so if I take data from Workspace and then from another source, there's often a 10 to 15% discrepancy. Yep, that's going to happen. Definitely. Every system is going to record data slightly differently. Like that's a given. They're different technologies.
Correct.
Then on top of that, you also have to deal with ad blockers. So ad blockers are not going to necessarily block all the systems equally. There's going to be opt-outs. So official opting out from certain data sources and not from others. There is going to be, say if you're looking at like a Facebook ad campaign and the Facebook pixels against your marketing attribution in Adobe. Those are going to end up being different because Facebook has no idea what's going on in your site. It's dropping a cookie on your browser that's going to last for 30 days. That's the default unless you've changed it. And the soon as you get a conversion and your site fires a pixel that says a conversion has happened and you have that cookie, Facebook's going to go, yes, I drove that. Even though your marketing attribution is going to say, yeah, but people left, they came back in through a newsletter, they left again, they came back in through a different ad, they came back in through a promotion. So there's a lot of different paths that user took before they finally converted. Did it add to the conversion? Possibly, if you're looking at a participation model. If you're looking at last touch, not really. I mean, it was 3 steps ago. So again, those values are definitely going to change. And then if you're looking at, say, a homebrew system where you're collecting data into your database versus a client side, sometimes the homebrew systems don't take into account bots. So I've had that happen in my own organization. Like, 15 years ago, we had to add like real analytics onto a site that had only been tracking it internally in their own database for years. And there was a lot of hard questions because that data was going out to clients and they had to explain why the data looked so much worse because they had forgotten to exclude bot traffic in all of their impression numbers. So again, different systems, different ways they handle bots, opt-outs, blocking. There could have been JavaScript issues that could have impacted here or there what items were being tracked. There's a lot of different factors. So seeing a 10 to 15% discrepancy shouldn't be a problem. What you should be focused on is trending. Are all of those systems going up at approximately the same rate at the same time? Are they all going down at approximately the same rate? You want those flows of traffic to basically follow the similar patterns and trends. If you see one skyrocketing and the other one not, well, now you've probably got a problem because it probably means that one is either overcounting or one is undercounting. If you have 3 or more systems, if 2 of them seem to be stable and the other one's going out of whack, well, that's a good indication that that's the problem. That's not always the case. It could be that the 2 that are in line are being driven by the same triggers and those triggers are starting to fail. Therefore, they're in the wrong, but it's a good starting point for an investigation. So again, that's what I tell my organization whenever we're looking at different data sources. Look at trends, look at patterns. Don't look at actual numbers. They're never going to match.
I will chime in with one other thing here. This is why we typically in our system will restate the term of revenue as a calculated metric, and we will call it sales, because we want to make sure that our company is not seeing the term revenue in a way that they think of it that way, because it's always in what we call a pre-fraud state. We don't want them to see Adobe Analytics as a system of truth ever, because Adobe Analytics is and should never be considered the system of truth when it comes to that. Because the thing is, if you think about it, Adobe Analytics has been set up to fail, and it should be, because it should not be the system to interrupt your other systems that are tracking your sales, your other more important systems. So when it does fail and should fail, it's not going to always capture those things. So like Jen said, it should follow the trends. It should follow the other things. So if you're seeing major problems, then you should be, then you should catch it that way. It should be your it should be your system that lets you know beforehand that something might be wrong. But like I saw, you can lose 10 to 15%. That's actually pretty good. That's not bad. I look for like a 5 to 10, maybe 15% off. I'll look for that. If I start seeing 20 to 25, I'm going to be like, what's going on? I might start to worry when I see that kind of a split. When I start hitting 15%, I might start getting a little bit concerned. But those kinds of spreads, I don't worry about too much. That's okay. So that's to be expected. So because it's all pre-fraud. So
yeah,
that's how you should treat it. it is an indicator. It is not your system of truth.
Yeah, and certain systems are going to be at a different discrepancy. As Jeff said, there are going to be certain systems that are going to be a lot closer. They're going to be within that 5%. Other systems which are going to be in that 10% kind of sweet spot. As you get more comfortable using the data over long periods of time, you're going to be have a sense of where that kind of discrepancy should be falling, so that if it goes outside of those thresholds, that's when you start to worry.
Yeah, so I agree with Jen and Jeff on all of that. So I see about 10 to 15% difference normally. One thing I do want to add is I like to say this is analytics and not reporting. Reporting is like accounting. It has to be absolutely correct. You don't throw anything away. This is analytics. So
Very true. All right. I also noticed that there's some chatter going on. So before I move on to the next question, yes, I've seen a lot of people talking about the Activity Map browser plugin not working. I have also seen a lot of reports of that on Experience League. I'm assuming that either the recent update to Chrome, because there's always updates to Chrome, or other browsers either broke it, or maybe they pushed a new version of Activity Map and broke compatibility. I'm not quite sure which it is, but yes, I've also heard that is not working. To be honest, in my organization, I haven't used that plugin for so many years that I keep on forgetting that it exists. But I do use Activity Map data, because Activity Map data is actually all available in your workspace, which is going to make a liar out of me because somebody doesn't have it turned on in this demo stuff. But if you actually search for Activity Map, you normally do get Activity Map link, Activity Map region, Activity Map link by region, Activity Map link instances, Activity Map region instances. So you get metrics and dimensions all around your Activity Map, which you can slice and dice right here in Workspace without the need of overlays, which also means that as content is shifting, for me, newspaper site, the content on our page is constantly changing because new news articles are constantly rolling in and the old ones are rolling out. I don't have to worry about trying to figure out what was shown all day long of what's disappeared. I just go in and I go, all right, tell me what was clicked, what regions were clicked, and I can get all that information out directly. Now, I will point out that Activity Map regions out of the box aren't great, because they tend to latch on to the closest ancestor ID, which is normally something that makes sense only to a developer. So not necessarily optimal. However, there are tricks around actually setting regions on your site to be meaningful. So if this was my site, I would actually set up regions to say top nav, workspace header, workspace icons, workspace search, workspace body. I would even potentially break these into their own components, calling this with a dynamic name of recording of office hours and whatnot. Or maybe I'd want it to be positioned like block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4, anything that is coming through in a way that is now going to make sense when I pull a report for anybody. So in that regard, when you actually get some kind of improvements to what your Activity Map is collecting, you don't have to rely on those overlays so much, because now everything is named in a way that you can pull it out into a report. And why would unspecified show in an Activity Map region? That's unusual, because if a region has not been specified, it should default to body all caps. That's the basic fallback. If you're getting unspecified, unless it's the first page of the visit. If it is the first page of the visit that does not have any Activity Map data, then yes, it will be unspecified, because they did not come from any link on your page. They opened the site up and therefore did not have a region. All right. Is there any article on how we can learn to make intuitive region labels? Yes, I believe Frederick might have a blog post, and I've been thinking about creating one myself. Very similar, different ways of going about it, but it ends up with, again, very similar outputs. Right now, I can tell you that there is, actually, I need Adobe added here, Adobe activity map link methodology. So this article right here is where I got a lot of my information from. And I have built on it over the years. Thank you, Mandy. But has a lot of information about, setting your text, setting your link regions. So you can see that here, this code is setting the activity map region to the attribute lpose. I actually suggest you use data-lpose. Then it won't. It actually falls under HTML specifications, and it won't trigger any W3C best practices. But essentially, you add an attribute data-lpose onto your region like this, except data dash, and this is called breaking news, and is missing a quote. So I think I'm going to have to ask Adobe to fix this a little bit. But essentially, anything clicked within this div is going to be associated to breaking news. Now, they did not do the same thing here on today's top headline. So in theory, you might want to stack and, or so I should say nest. So if you had a data region on your content field that said content and then breaking news, this link would default to the first one it found, which would be breaking news. But this one that doesn't have anything here would go up the chain and go, oh, but it's part of content. So you can actually do things in this manner. So I'm going to post this into the chat. And there are many, many ways of going about actually getting your activity map to work better than the out-of-the-box solution. And believe me, it's like when you get it to the level that you really want it, the information that you can get into your workspace is really rich and valuable. Jeff, Luke, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
All right. Okay.
I don't have activity maps, so I'm like, oh, this is good information, Jim.
Yeah, I really need to get working on that blog post, don't I? Okay. In link click tracking, is link click text or link click URL important? Well, the answer, like most things, is both. It really matters how you plan on using the information. Because think about it. In some cases, you want the URL, but in other cases, you want the actual link text. Let's say I have a button which is on my site and it says subscribe now, and we change it to subscribe, or we change it to act now. You might want to know which text on those buttons is actually getting the most engagement. So link text in that case is very, very important. However, when you are looking at maybe an inconsistent design across the site, like maybe your homepage says subscribe now and your page X says subscribe and some other page says something else, and they're all going to the same location. Well, now if you're using link text, they're all diverged throughout your report under different headings. So that might be where you want the link URL to come into play. The other thing that you could do is kind of going back to this link tracking methodology. You can actually override the value of a link, not just take the link text, but maybe take a composite value. Maybe you actually want to do a composite of something that is standard across the board, what the link text is, what something else is, and then use classifications to split it out into multiple values. There's 1,000,008 ways that you can slice and dice the data, and it really depends on how you plan on using it. That's going to drive value for you. So you could ask this question to 1,000,000 different people. You'll get 1,000,000 different answers for 1,000,000 different variety of reasons why you get those different answers. And my philosophy is find what works for you. Because if it doesn't work for you, it's useless. Just because it works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for Jeff. Doesn't mean it's going to work for Luke. But they may have solutions that work for them that maybe not as helpful to me. But if it's working within your organization, if you're able to pull out the data in the granularity and the way that you need it to make informed decisions, informed reporting, obviously that's the way you should go, because that's, you're the one using the data.
Yep. One thing I do want to add on to that is, if you want both, you can put it into a proper EVAR and then use classification to split it out. And you're basically alluding to doing that also, Jen. So
yeah. Actually, speaking of that, I actually pass all of my activity map data, my dimensions, into EVARs for a couple of reasons. One, the activity map data is not available in the raw data feeds because it is contextual data. So now my raw data feeds that go out, all my data lake team can get those. And I actually just do it with a processing rule. But on top of that, activity map as it exists today doesn't exist in mobile apps. We have created a replication within our mobile apps to pass regions, links, and pages the same way that activity map works on the web, so that we can actually get reports on both. So we can actually see what's going on with the activity map without having extra server calls for clicks within our app. So there's a lot of different tricks that you can do to get stuff up to where you need it to go. Oh, I see someone's shocked. Yes, that was a big project, but it was so worth it. I just have to make sure that every time they add new links that they don't forget to put the coding in, but that's what UAT testing is for. All right, Jeff, Luke, do you have anything to add about link tracking methodology?
No, I gave my input, and what you gave was great, Jen.
Okay. Well, we've got 2 questions left in 15 minutes. I think we're going to be on time. Oh, it actually, yeah. Sorry, that question just came in. One more time. Did you say we should see body of copy in the activity map region? It should actually be body, and I'm just going to type this in both into the chat and I'll just post it here as well. So what I've noticed is, unless somebody has done something really weird with overriding activity map regions, if there is an activity map region that has not been associated to a specific ID or to your LPOS, which I should say, LPOS, I believe, stands for link position, in case anyone's wondering what LPOS actually meant. But if it doesn't fall under any of those, it should fall back to literal body. All caps. I guess maybe that distinguishes it from anything that you have, which you're probably passing through as lowercase. But that's how I've always seen it come through when there's no region associated to it. Unless it's unspecified, in which case that probably means that there's 2 things that could mean. It could either mean that was the first page of the visit, therefore no activity map data, or, and I honestly, this makes me shiver every time I find this, but sometimes developers like to make clickable divs. where they take a div and they put JavaScript on it and it acts like a navigation element. Well, technically works for the user. It is horrible for SEO. It is horrible for accessibility because you can no longer right click and open in a new tab or see where you're going or do anything of the sort. And it does not get picked up by Activity Map. And there is nothing you can do to make it get picked up by Activity Map. Yeah, I totally agree with the puking emoji. Every time I see this, I go back and I knock some heads and go, no, please don't do this. Please stop. But that could be a reason why you might be getting unspecified in your activity map if something like that has occurred. Yeah. Damon Hall, because I don't think the text will actually go through into the recording, says, I scream at the devs, fix this.
Mm-hmm.
Please, everyone should be doing that because it's horrible. It really is a bad practice. I'm a firm believer of semantic web coding, as in, when you are doing a function, it should be semantically tagged. Should be an anchor. And preferably, I would say anchors over buttons for anything navigation. Buttons should really only be used if it is something that stays on the page or is a form submission. Again, keep the functionality the way things were intended. You can make an anchor link look like a button if that's what you want it to look like. Just don't make it an actual button. And I believe off the top of my head, buttons may not trigger activity map properly. You can adjust that again through some of the link tracking methodologies. And I can follow up with this because this could probably take an entire session of how to make your link tracking work better for you. But there are ways to get it to pick up buttons because buttons are still navigation elements. So maybe Jeff, we'll take a note of this. Maybe we'll want to do a user group session specifically on activity map and tricks that you can use to increase what you can do. All right. How can one change line color for a line visualization type? Yeah.
So I could tell you this right now. You cannot do it for one, but here's the thing. You can do what's called a custom color set for your. So in other words, you can do in any project. In any project, if you go over to your project settings, for instance, so if you've got your line, if you have your line graph, for instance, so there's your lines, for instance. And if you go over to your project and you go to project info and settings, you have your options. There you go. So you can come up with a custom palette, and you've got all of your, all of the ones that they provide you out of the box to do. And then you can see what Jen did right there. She actually chose the German flag.
That wasn't me. I'm going to blame Frederick on this one.
I know. Well, somebody did. So you can see red, gold, and black right there. So probably Frederick. No, I'm just teasing. But yeah, you can see red, gold, and black right there. So those three colors. But the thing is, though, you are still limited at the project level. Adobe. That which is one of my pet peeves is that you can only do it at the project level. So that's where you are limited. So you can do this for a project, and that is your limitation. So I recommend that you go out there. I know that I have an idea already out there on Experience League. Join us, out on Experience League with the ideas in trying to get this promoted so that we can have better, have better options out there to do some custom line colors. But beyond that, Jill, do you want to chime in here? And that's really what you can do to to change your line colors. Now, with that said, we're going to be talking. I will also tease that my colleague Sherry Deutsch and I are going to be talking about this a little bit more in regards to data storytelling. But I would also I would like you to think about ADA. As it relates to line colors, coloring in general, when you are dealing with, any kind of colors on your dashboards, because of those kinds of things, when you are starting to change up what you are doing with your dashboard for people, because not everybody sees reds, not everybody sees the difference between red and green and things like that. So you might want to speak to people within your organization. I am not a specialist when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I would defer to people who do understand that. So that's just one thing that you might want to think about.
Yeah. Now I just posted a recent idea posted about color. I'm pretty sure Jeff has one too. If you can find yours, absolutely post it into the chat. So
yeah, it looks like somebody else has done it at the CJA, but yeah, I have one for Adobe Analytics.
Good. Yeah. So the more votes and the more eyeballs we can get on this, probably the better. And I would also say that, from being able to customize colors, if we could customize them, I would love to be able to, like, again, not have one color palette for the entire project, but for certain reports, like say, maybe I want to kind of color code by different shades of the same color, similar pages. So, this is kind of like group A of pages and they're all in shades of blue. This is, group B of pages and they're all in shades of green, which you can't do right now because you can only change the entire color palette. But I don't want my other reports starting with different shades of blue, because that makes for a really hard to read table if I'm not going deep enough into it. So yeah, we really, really do need the ability to customize colors individually. Having a palette's fine. Having a palette as a fallback is great. Use the palette if you haven't otherwise specified on the visualization. But this is kind of a point of contention both Jeff and I think have raised multiple times over the years.
Kind of, sort of.
You can make, so Damon Hall is saying you can make date ranges, example bar, different colors using segments that are off specific date rate. I don't think so, because everything that I've ever seen is always based on that the color palette. First color, second color, third color, fourth color. I've never been able to see you do anything where you actually specify what you want.
Fascinating.
Okay, and well, 5 minutes to go. All right. If I use the page load extension, what is the best way to report the data that is captured? So I am going to assume they're talking about the get page load time plugin, which I do not use on my own implementation.
No.
So let's just take a quick look at what this is saying. So it looks like it's loading the previous time, so the previous page load time into a prop and an evar, so both dimensions, and then an event, which is passing the value as a numeric value. So again, remember that anything coming through an evar or a prop is going to be recorded as text, as a string value. So that's probably, for your individual loads, you'll see that it was, I'm going to assume this is load time in seconds. I'm going to say you had 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds. It's probably going to be some point of that, like 2 point whatever, or 1 point whatever, or 0 point something if your site's like really good in load time. You know what it is with all of our ads. But all of those are going to be carried through as strings, whereas your event is actually going to pass things through as numeric values, which again will be treated the same way that any sort of numeric event captures. But as for specifics to actually being able to pull report out on this is, I don't have any direct experience, and I'm going to guess that we don't have anything like page load time here in this sample data in order to play with it. Have you guys, either of you guys, used this plugin yourselves?
No.
Okay. So I guess that would be something that, in order to really properly answer this, having experience pulling reports out from this would make the most sense. I would guess that if you are pairing your event to your page name, again, this is page load. Oh, yeah, it's like this is the page load time from the previous page. So again, you can't even correlate this to page name. You would probably need to also collect your previous page value using the other previous page value so that you can correlate. So if you were to take previous page along with the event 100 in this case, you would end up with probably a total time recorded for those pages. And then, and then if you calculate a mean loading time, you have to keep in mind it'll never be perfect. Yeah, because you'll have outliers, lots of different things. I would say this is kind of like more of a health check. Like any time recording in Adobe, use it as a health check, not as an absolute. Because this tool really isn't designed for tracking page load. And then keep in mind that depending on when your launch file gets loaded, if your launch file is loaded fairly late into the execution, like if the page starts loading and you have a whole bunch of resources coming down the chain, then you have Adobe, and then you have the rest of it, this probably only starts recording at the point where that code has actually been loaded onto the page and starts to take effect. So you could have cut out a lot of time at the very beginning of that page load, so you're not getting an actual value, you're just getting kind of a health check. Again, assuming that your page, your file loads fairly consistently in the execution on all your pages. I am pretty sure that I've already liked Jeff's post that he just posted. Oh, for some reason I had it. Well, there I go. Now I've liked the robust controls. How did I miss that one, Jeff? All right. Well, I've added my like to it. Came up on my other screen, but I've added my like to your custom line colors.
And I'm going to excuse myself. I have to jump to another meeting.
All right.
I've just added my like also, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right. So thanks for everyone for spending the last hour with us. I hope we were able to help. I know some of the answers weren't ideal, but sometimes that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you guys want to continue any of the discussions we had here today, hop onto Experience League. I'm always there. Luke can attest to that.
She is.
And we'd be happy to continue chatting about anything that we talked about or any new topics, really.